My husband brought his mistress to our wedding anniversary, introduced her as a colleague. I smiled all evening and played the perfect hostess. And then I raised a toast, after which the entire room fell silent. Sometimes life collapses not because of an earthquake, but because of a tiny crack. My crack was an earring, just an ordinary stud with a tiny turquoise stone, one I found in our car while reaching between the seats for my fallen phone. I froze, holding it in my palm, and felt a chill spread through my veins. This earring wasn't mine. I had never worn turquoise. That shade didn't suit me. And the style wasn't mine either. Youthful, bold, the kind of jewelry I had stopped wearing 20 years ago. "Jess, are you stuck out there?" Robert called from the house. I clenched my fist, hiding the evidence, and straightened up. In the rearview mirror, my reflection flashed. A 50-year-old woman with fine lines around her eyes and hair that needed coloring more and more often. When had it happened? When had I become the woman who could be deceived? "Coming." My voice sounded surprisingly steady. 27 years of marriage. For 27 years, I believed I knew this man better than I knew myself. We met when I was 21, married at 23, went through highs and lows, raised a son who now studied in another state, built a house, a career, a life. Robert was as predictable as a Swiss watch, or so I thought. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay beside my husband, listening to his even breathing, replaying possible explanations in my head. Maybe the earring belonged to a colleague he'd given a ride to, or a client. Robert worked at an architecture firm. He was always meeting people. It could have been anything, but instinct, that ancient primal part of the brain, screamed that I was lying to myself. At 50, I had learned to tell intuition from paranoia, and this was intuition. The next day I began to observe, not deliberately. I just noticed things I used to overlook. Robert started coming home later. He used to be back by 7, now it was 9 or 10. He talked about projects, deadlines, important clients. I nodded, reheated dinner, asked about his day. The perfect wife, the blind wife, the old wife? That thought lodged in my mind like a splinter. Was it my age? I was still attractive, stayed fit, took care of myself. But wrinkles don't go away, nor does gravity, which every year pressed harder. Robert, at 53, still looked solid and appealing. The gray at his temples only made him more distinguished. His athletic build showed discipline. Men and women aged differently, and it was damn unfair. 3 days later, I made up my mind. Robert was in the shower and his phone lay on the nightstand. I had never checked his phone before. Never. We trusted each other, or so I thought. My hands trembled as I picked it up. I knew the password, our wedding date, the irony. The screen unlocked, and I opened his messages. The first few chats were ordinary. Colleagues, friends, our son Daniel, me. Then I saw a name with no last name, Elizabeth. My heart plummeted. I opened the thread. "I miss you. When will I see you?" she had written last night. "Tomorrow night. The usual place," Robert replied. The usual place. So this wasn't the first time. I scrolled up. Months of messages, photos, her face, laughing, beautiful, young. God, so young. Compliments, plans, words of love. The very words he once said to me. "You're the most beautiful woman I've ever met. Can't wait to hold you. With you, I feel young again." That last line burned. Young again. Did that mean with me he felt old? I, his wife of 27 years, his peer, reminded him of age, of years lived, of youth gone? And this girl, she pulled him back into the past? I felt sick. I barely managed to put the phone back and run out of the bedroom. In the guest bathroom, I sat on the cold tile floor, hugging my knees, trying to breathe. The water still ran in the shower. Robert suspected nothing. How long? How long had this been going on? Who was she? Did he love her? Did he still love me? Or was I just a habit, a convenient partner who cooked dinner and ironed shirts while he searched for passion elsewhere? Questions swarmed in my head like angry wasps. I could have stormed into the shower right then, started a scene, demanded explanations, kicked him out, called a lawyer, told everyone, destroyed his life the way he had destroyed mine. But I didn't. Instead, I washed my face with cold water, looked at my reflection in the mirror, and made a decision. I would not be the hysterical wife who screamed and cried. I would not give him the chance to paint me as crazy or jealous. I had lived 50 years, and I'd learned one thing. Impulsiveness rarely wins. I would find out the truth, the whole truth, and then I'd decide what to do. When Robert stepped out of the shower, I was already in bed with a book. "You okay?" he asked, toweling his hair. "You look pale." "Just tired," I smiled. "Rough day." He kissed my forehead. A familiar gesture. Once it had warmed me. Now it only filled me with disgust. "Rest, darling," he said, and lay down beside me. Beloved, that word now sounded like mockery. The next day I started my own investigation. First I checked the credit card statements. Robert hadn't been careful enough to use cash, restaurants we had never been to together, trendy, youthful places I would never have thought to suggest, a downtown hotel, twice last month, a flower shop. He hadn't given me flowers in over a year, not since my birthday. Every line on that statement felt like a knife to the heart. Then I went back to the phone. I waited until Robert left for his run and once again opened his messages with Elizabeth. This time I took screenshots, sent them to my email, and deleted them immediately from the outbox. I studied her social media profile. Elizabeth Clark, 29 years old, marketing specialist at a large company. Beautiful, stylish, with a mane of chestnut hair and green eyes. In her photos, she smiled against the backdrop of trendy restaurants, art galleries, beaches, a life full of color and carefreeness, a life I had 30 years ago, 29. She was only 5 years older than our son. The realization hit me with renewed force. Robert was having an affair with a woman young enough to be his daughter. This wasn't just an affair. It was an escape from reality, from age, from me. She didn't know about me, that much was clear. In all their messages, Robert never once mentioned that he was married. He simply lived a double life. With me, the reliable husband, father of an adult son, a man with history and responsibilities. With her, a romantic lover, free and passionate, with no past, no obligations. Which role did he prefer? I spent the entire evening studying this woman, where she went, what she liked, who she was friends with. I felt like a stalker and a detective at the same time, but I couldn't stop. I needed to understand who she was, what she had that I didn't, or rather, what I no longer had. Youth, freshness, possibility, and then it struck me. I didn't just want to confront Robert. I didn't want to scream and cry only to listen to his pathetic excuses or, worse, his accusations, that I had become boring, predictable, old. I wanted to know the scope of his betrayal. I wanted to see this woman with my own eyes, talk to her, understand. The plan formed slowly, like a puzzle assembling itself out of chaos. I would find Elizabeth, meet her, not as her lover's wife, but as, a casual acquaintance, a new friend, someone she could trust. It was madness. I knew that. But the alternative, living in ignorance, tormented by suspicions, or staging a cliché scandal, seemed worse. At 20, I probably would have just thrown him out. At 30, had a screaming fit. At 40, hired a private investigator. But at 50, I understood this. I needed the full picture before making any decision. That night, while Robert slept beside me with his arm flung across my side of the bed, I lay staring at the ceiling and planning. My heartbeat was steady. The tears were gone. There was only cold, calculating anger and resolve. I would find the truth, whatever it was, and then we would see. The turquoise stud lay hidden in my jewelry box, tucked under the pearl necklace Robert had given me for our 20th anniversary. A small piece of evidence, a tiny crack. But even the smallest crack can break a dam, and I was ready to open the floodgates. Finding Elizabeth was easier than I thought. Social media is a blessing for those who want to stay unseen while seeing everything. She regularly tagged herself at the same downtown coffee shop, a trendy place with avocado toasts and latte art, the kind of spot I would normally never go to. Too youthful, too noisy, too not me. But today I was going there with purpose. I spent more time getting ready than I cared to admit. I chose my outfit carefully. Jeans, a cashmere sweater, discreet makeup, not too old-fashioned but not trying to look younger either, just neutral. A woman who could be anyone. The coffee shop greeted me with the aroma of fresh ground coffee and the hum of conversation. I looked around and my heart leapt. She was there. Elizabeth sat by the window with her laptop, twirling a strand of chestnut hair around her finger. Exactly like in her photos, young, fresh, carefree. I ordered a cappuccino and, as if by chance, headed for the table next to hers. Plenty of seats were free, but I chose that one. Close enough to start a conversation if the moment came, but not so close as to seem strange. I sat down, pulled out my phone, pretended to check emails. In reality, I was watching, studying. Elizabeth typed quickly, sometimes frowning, sometimes smiling at something on the screen. Beautiful, no doubt, but not dazzling, an ordinary young woman, one of thousands. What did he see in her? "Excuse me," she suddenly said to me, and I flinched. "Do you have a charger?" "My laptop's dying and I forgot mine at home." I looked at her. Green eyes, a light smile, no hidden agenda. She was simply asking for help. "Of course," I said, pulling my charger from my bag. "Here you go." "Thank you so much. You're a lifesaver," she sighed with relief. "I'm working on a presentation. Deadline in 2 hours, and my battery's at 0. Nightmare." "It happens," I smiled. "Do you work remotely?" "Partially. I'm in marketing. Sometimes it's easier in a coffee shop than in the office. Fewer distractions, oddly enough." She plugged in the charger and looked at me again. "Do you come here often? I haven't seen you before." "No, first time." "A friend recommended it," I lied smoothly. "Thought I'd give it a try." "Oh, they have great coffee here, and the carrot cake is just divine if you've got a sweet tooth." We started chatting, just casually, the way strangers talk in a coffee shop. She told me about work, launching a new campaign for a client, the stress, the sleepless nights. I said I worked at a publishing house as an editor, a truth easy enough to maintain. The conversation flowed naturally, without strain. Elizabeth was pleasant, open, perhaps a little naive, but genuine. She laughed easily, gestured as she spoke, and there wasn't a trace of guile in her eyes. She wasn't a femme fatale, not a calculating homewrecker, just a girl who likely had no idea what she'd gotten herself into. "Sorry, I really should get back to this," she said after half an hour. "I need to finish this presentation." Of course. Good luck with the deadline." "Thanks. And for the charger, too." She held out her hand. "I'm Elizabeth, by the way." "Jessica," I said, shaking her hand. Truth and lies mingled in that handshake. My real name. But everything else was theater. "Nice to meet you, Jessica." "Maybe I'll see you here again?" "Maybe," I smiled. I came back 3 days later, and there she was again. Same cafe, same window seat. This time she spotted me first. "Jessica!" she waved. "What a coincidence." I walked over, and she motioned for me to sit down beside her. "How did the presentation go?" I asked. "They loved it." The client was thrilled, my boss was happy, and I could finally breathe again. She laughed. And you? How are things? We talked again, this time longer, deeper. She shared more about herself. She'd moved to the city 3 years ago, rented an apartment with a friend, loved yoga and old movies. I listened, nodded, asked questions, gathering pieces of her life bit by bit. But she never mentioned Robert, not a word about a man in her life. And you? Elizabeth asked. Married? Someone special? The question caught me off guard, though I should have expected it. Divorced, I lied, surprised at how easily the words slipped off my tongue. For a few years now, I live alone. Oh, I see. That must be hard. You get used to it, I shrugged. And you? Do you have someone? She hesitated, and I caught a flicker in her eyes. Uncertainty, sadness. It's complicated, she said quietly at last. I'm seeing someone, but it's not simple. Married? I asked bluntly. Elizabeth flinched. How did you... I know that tone, I said gently. I've been there. Long ago. It was a lie, but a useful one. Elizabeth looked at me, torn between the urge to confide and the instinct to stay guarded. Yes, she admitted finally. Married. But he says he's going to divorce, that their marriage is already dead. They're just waiting for the right time. I know how it sounds. I'm not stupid, but... But you believe him, I finished. I love him, she said simply. The words struck harder than I expected. She loved my husband, and judging by the messages, he loved her too, or at least played the part well enough for her to believe. How long has he been promising to divorce? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. 6 months now. He says his wife wouldn't understand, that the timing isn't right. They have an adult son, a family business, mutual friends. It's complicated. An adult son, a family business. He hadn't even bothered to invent a different story, just twisted the details slightly. Elizabeth, I said carefully, I don't want to lecture you. But men who promise to leave their wives rarely do. Usually they're just using you, I know, she interrupted. Everyone tells me that. But Robert isn't like that. He's sincere. Robert. She said his name. My heart stopped for a second, but I didn't let it show. Robert, is it? I asked calmly. Yes. I'm sorry, I don't usually tell strangers about this, but you seem understanding. You don't judge. Everyone makes their own choices, I said. It's not my place to judge. We talked a little more, and I carefully steered the subject elsewhere. But the seed had been planted. Elizabeth trusted me. She saw me as an ally, someone who wouldn't condemn her. When I left the cafe, she hugged me goodbye. Thank you for listening, she said. Let's call each other this week. It'd be great to have some wine and chat. I'd love that, I smiled. We exchanged numbers. As I walked to my car, one thought pulsed in my head. It's working. She trusts me. I'm inside her life. Now all that was left was to learn the whole truth. Elizabeth called 2 days later and suggested meeting at a wine bar. I agreed, though each of these encounters was becoming harder. Pretending was getting more difficult, especially when she smiled at me so sincerely, so openly. We sat at a table in the corner and she ordered a bottle of red. I really need to talk, she admitted once the waiter had left. My friends don't understand. They say I'm a fool for wasting time on a married man, but they don't know him. I nodded silently, giving her room. Robert isn't like the others, Elizabeth went on. He's attentive, caring. He actually listens to me, you know? Not just nods, but really listens. With him, I feel important. My grip on the glass tightened. Attentive, caring. When was the last time he had been that with me? When was the last time he truly listened? Tell me more about him, I asked, hating every word I uttered. Her face lit up. He's 53, an architect. Successful, talented. We met at a business dinner a year ago and I felt a connection right away. He seemed so unhappy in his marriage. He said his wife didn't understand him, that they'd been living like roommates for years. A year ago, so it had been going on for a year. He really says that? That his wife doesn't understand him? My voice came out sharper than intended. Elizabeth didn't notice. Yes. He says he married too young, that they grew into different people. His wife, she's a good woman, but they don't belong together anymore. He wants a divorce, but he's afraid of hurting her. And their son, Daniel. I think that's his name. Daniel. Our son. She knew my son's name. And you believe him? I asked quietly. I want to, she said, sipping her wine. But sometimes I have doubts. He never stays the night. He never brings me to his home. We meet in hotels, at my place, but always in secret. He says it's safer until the divorce is finalized. Elizabeth, I leaned closer. A year is a long time. If he truly wanted to leave... I know, she cut me off, tears brimming in her eyes. I know how it looks. But something happened a month ago. I got pregnant. The world tilted. I clutched the edge of the table. What? I'm pregnant, she whispered. 8 weeks. I told Robert. I thought he'd be happy, that it would push him to finally leave her. But he told me to have an abortion. I couldn't breathe. Robert, my husband. His mistress was carrying a child. Our son would have a sibling by another woman. He said now wasn't the right time. Elizabeth's voice trembled. That we had to wait until after the divorce. That we could have children later. But I want this baby. I already love it. She was crying now, and instinctively I reached out and squeezed her hand. The gesture was genuine, not part of the act, not manipulation, just one woman comforting another. What are you going to do? I asked. I don't know. I made an appointment at a clinic for the day after tomorrow. Robert insists. He says otherwise everything will get too complicated. But I can't. Jessica, I can't kill my baby. My baby. The grandchild of my future grandchildren. A life born out of betrayal. Then don't, I said firmly. If you want this child, keep it. And Robert? What about Robert? If he truly loves you, he'll accept your choice. If not... I paused. Then you'll know the truth about him. Whatever it is. Elizabeth looked at me through her tears. You're right. You're absolutely right. It's just... scary. Losing him is scary. You know what's even scarier? I asked. Losing yourself. We stayed for another hour. She talked, I listened, and with every word the picture became clearer. Robert was expertly manipulating her. Promises, tenderness, then pressure and control. A classic script. When we said goodbye, Elizabeth hugged me tightly. Thank you, she whispered. You're the only one who doesn't judge. Who understands? I drove home in a fog, pregnant. She was pregnant with my husband's child, and he demanded an abortion to keep his double life intact. At home, Robert was watching TV. How was your day? He asked without looking up. Fine, I answered. Met with a friend. Good. I'll be late tomorrow. Client meeting. Client meeting. Another lie. I went upstairs to the bedroom and took out my phone. I wrote to Elizabeth, I've been thinking about our conversation. You're a strong woman. You'll make the right decision. I'm here if you need me. The reply came quickly. Thank you. I canceled the clinic appointment. I'm keeping the baby, whatever happens. I smiled through my tears. The plan was changing, becoming more complicated, but a new opportunity had appeared. Robert had destroyed our family. Now I would find out how many other lives he'd ruined. and then he would pay for everything. For the next 2 weeks, I walked a tightrope. At home, the obedient wife, smiling at her husband over breakfast. At meetings with Elizabeth, the supportive friend, helping her through the hardest time. Elizabeth really had kept the baby. Robert was furious. I could tell from the sharp movements at home, the way he slammed doors, from the tense phone calls he made in the garage, thinking I couldn't hear. He hardly calls now, Elizabeth admitted to me over a cup of tea in her apartment. He told me I need to think about the consequences, that I'm ruining his life. Are you ruining his life? I barely contained my anger. And what is he doing to yours? I'm starting to realize I might have been wrong about him, she said, brushing a hand over the faint roundness of her belly. Pregnancy changes things. You look at everything differently. The moment had come. I felt it in my bones. Elizabeth, I sat down next to her. I need to tell you something. It's going to hurt, but you deserve the truth. She turned to me. Fear flashed in her eyes. What do you mean? I took out my phone and opened a photo. Our wedding picture with Robert 27 years ago. Young, happy, in love. I'm not divorced, I said softly. I'm married. To Robert. For 27 years. Elizabeth went pale. The phone fell from her hands. What? No, this can't be... You... Jessica Harrison, Robert Harrison's wife, Daniel's mother. My voice trembled. I found out about you a month ago. I found an earring in the car, then the messages on his phone. Oh my God! She covered her face with her hands. Oh God, no! I didn't want to hurt you, I continued. I know it sounds insane, but I needed to know. To understand who you were, and I understood. I paused. You are a victim, just like me. He lied to us both. Elizabeth was sobbing now, hiccuping, rocking from side to side. I slept with someone else's husband. I'm pregnant by someone else's husband. I ruined a family. No, I grabbed her shoulders. You didn't ruin it. Robert did. He lied to you. Said he'd divorce, that he was unhappy. He chose to deceive us both. But you're his wife. You must hate me. A week ago. Yes. But now I know you. I know you're not to blame. You didn't know. She looked at me through her tears, and I saw confusion, shame, horror in her eyes. What should I do? With the baby? I can't give birth to a child by your husband. It's your child, I said firmly. Your decision. I can't make it for you. But know this. I don't blame you, and I don't blame the baby. We sat in silence. Her sunlit apartment now felt like a wreck, the debris of shattered illusions. Why did you tell me? She finally asked. Why did you even befriend me? To understand the scale of the betrayal. To learn who you were. Whether I'd planned to tell you the truth, I don't know. But when you told me about the pregnancy and that he demanded an abortion, I shook my head. I couldn't stay silent. You deserve to know who you're dealing with. Elizabeth wiped her tears. He's a monster, she whispered. I was so blind. He's a good actor. I didn't notice for 27 years. We sat another hour. Gradually, the shock receded, and something else began to take its place. I saw a spark ignite in her eyes, not of anger, but of determination. Jessica, she said suddenly, I need to check something. Can I use your laptop? I handed her my computer. Elizabeth opened Robert's email. She knew the password, as it turned out, and began rummaging through old messages, deleted items, drafts. What are you looking for? I asked. I suspect... She frowned, clicking the mouse with focus. Half a year ago, he mentioned a name, Victoria. Said she was an ex-colleague. But there was something off about how he said it. She found it. Correspondence with a woman named Victoria Cheng, dated 2 years earlier. The same words, the same promises, the same pattern. He did this before, Elizabeth whispered. We dug deeper. We found more. Maria Rodriguez, 3 years ago. Sophia Larson, 4 years ago. Chloe Clark, 5 years ago. At least 5 women in 5 years, maybe more. He's a professional, I said, feeling cold fill me. This isn't just an affair. This is a way of life. Elizabeth stared at the screen and I watched the last hope, the last illusion, crumble. What can we do? She asked quietly. Find them, I answered. Find these women. Learn their stories. And then, I clenched my fists. Then we'll decide how to make him pay. Elizabeth nodded. I'm with you. Whatever you're planning, I'm with you. That was the beginning of a new stage. We were no longer enemies. We had become allies, and we had a mission. Finding Victoria Cheng was the easiest. She still worked at the same company where she had once collaborated with Robert. Elizabeth called her under the pretense of a business proposal, and we arranged to meet at a small restaurant on the edge of the city. Victoria arrived right on time. An elegant woman in her mid-30s, dressed in a sharp suit, her hair pulled back in a flawless bun. She sat across from us with a polite smile that vanished the moment Elizabeth spoke Robert's name. Why did you call me here? Her voice turned cold. Because we're all tied to the same man, I said. Robert Harrison. I'm his wife. Elizabeth is his current mistress. And you were 2 years ago. Victoria froze. Her fingers tightened on the edge of the table. I don't understand what you want from me. The truth, Elizabeth said. We know he was with you. We found the messages. Please tell us what happened. Victoria was silent for a long time. Then she exhaled slowly. We were together for 8 months. He promised to divorce. Told me I was the love of his life, that his wife didn't understand him. She gave a bitter laugh. Sound familiar? Elizabeth nodded. I was a fool. I believed every word. I even lent him money, $20,000. He said it was for a project, that he'd pay me back double. 2 weeks later, he disappeared. Blocked me everywhere, changed his number. I never saw a cent of it. My God, Elizabeth whispered. I thought about suing, but the lawyer said, no documents, no case. On paper, it was a gift. I just let it go. Decided the lesson was worth $20,000. We're so sorry, I said. Why are you here? Victoria looked straight at me. You're his wife. Why don't you just divorce him? Because I want him to pay, I answered evenly, for everything. For all of us. Victoria hesitated. What are you proposing? I don't know yet. But if we come up with a plan, will you stand with us? She nodded slowly. Yes, I will. We found Maria Rodriguez through Facebook. She lived in the neighboring state, working as a nurse. She agreed to a video call. When her face appeared on the screen, I saw a tired woman with dark circles under her eyes. Robert Harrison, she repeated when she heard his name. I haven't heard that name in 3 years. And I don't want to. Please, Elizabeth pleaded. We need to know your story. Maria closed her eyes. I got pregnant by him. We were together 6 months. He promised to marry me. When he found out about the pregnancy, at first he was happy. And then, her voice broke. Then I lost the baby. A miscarriage at 4 months. I was devastated. I called him, and he said it was for the best, that it would make things easier. And then he vanished, just disappeared from my life. Elizabeth instinctively placed her hand over her belly. I'm so sorry. Later, I found out he was married. Always married, lying the whole time. Maria wiped away a tear. I hate him. I hate him with every cell of my body. Maria, I said, we're going to expose him. Publicly, will you help us? She looked at us through the screen. What do you need me to do? Come, tell your story in front of everyone. Maria nodded. I'll come. For the baby I lost, for all of us, we tracked down Sophia Larson through LinkedIn, a successful lawyer, partner at a major firm. We met her in her office. She agreed to give us half an hour. I don't have much time, she said as we walked in. What's this about? Robert Harrison, I replied. Her expression didn't change, but I saw her shoulders stiffen. Go on. 4 years ago, you were involved with him. He used you for business connections, then dropped you. Sophia leaned back in her chair. You've done your homework. Yes, that mistake happened in my life. Robert met me at a conference, charmed me, seduced me. Then he started asking for introductions to powerful clients. I helped. He got 3 major contracts thanks to my connections. And when there was nothing more to take, she snapped her fingers. He vanished. We're gathering the women he used, Elizabeth said. We want to expose him. Why should I? I've long forgotten, Sophia replied. But in her eyes, I saw the lie. Because he has to pay. And because you haven't forgotten, I said quietly. Sophia studied us for a long time. Then she pulled out a business card, scribbled a phone number on the back. Call me when you have a plan. I'll think about it. That evening, we gathered at my house. Robert was away on yet another business trip, another lie. 4 women, me, Elizabeth, Victoria, and Sophia. Maria joined by video call. 4 stories, 4 shattered lives, 1 man. What now? Victoria asked. Now we plan revenge, I said, steel in my voice. In 3 weeks, it's our anniversary. 27 years. Robert's planning a big celebration. Friends, family, colleagues, everyone he wants to impress. And? Sophia leaned forward. And I'll invite all of you. As guests. No one will suspect a thing. I smiled coldly. And then, when everyone's gathered, I'll raise a toast. And tell the truth, the whole truth, in front of them all. Elizabeth nodded slowly. He'll collapse. His career, his reputation, everything. Exactly. I looked at each of them. Do you agree? One by one, they nodded. The plan was beginning to take shape. Robert had no idea a storm was coming, but he'd find out soon enough. For the next 3 weeks, I lived in 2 realities. In one, I was the wife preparing for her wedding anniversary, ordering flowers, planning the menu, sending out invitations. In the other, I was the director of a revenge play, coordinating every detail with the women my husband had betrayed. The restaurant's booked, Robert said at breakfast, flipping through his newspaper. The big hall, 60 people. I invited the partners from the firm, the Johnsons, the Millers. Did you make your list? Yes, I smiled, pouring his coffee. A few friends, some colleagues from the publishing house. It will be a wonderful evening. He didn't know that among my friends would be Victoria, Sophia, and Maria, that each of them would come for one purpose. By the way, Robert set the newspaper down, I invited Elizabeth Clark, a colleague from the marketing firm we've worked with. Hope you don't mind. I nearly dropped my cup. He had invited Elizabeth, himself, to our anniversary. A colleague? I forced my voice to sound indifferent. Yes, just a courtesy. Good business relations, you know. She helped with the last project. The audacity, pure unmatched audacity, to bring his mistress, pregnant with his child, to his wedding anniversary, to present her as a colleague. Of course I don't mind. I smiled. The more guests, the merrier. He didn't even notice the poison in my words. That evening I called Elizabeth. He invited me, her voice trembled, to your anniversary. Said it was just formality, a professional gesture. Jessica, I can't go. It's Impossible. Come, I said firmly, it's perfect. If he invites you himself, no one will suspect. You'll be there as his guest, and then we'll show everyone who you really are. But I'm pregnant. My belly's already showing. Even better. Let them all see. Elizabeth was silent. I'm scared. So am I admitted. But we're stronger together. We've come this far. We won't back down now. She sighed. All right. I'll come. A week before the anniversary, we all met in Sophia's rented apartment. We had to rehearse. Here's the plan. I spread the seating chart of the restaurant across the table. Robert will seat his guests on the right, mine on the left. Victoria and Sophia, you'll sit among my friends. Maria flies in that morning. I'll meet her. Elizabeth will come as Robert's guest. And then, Victoria asked, Robert will give the first toast. He'll say beautiful words about love, fidelity, the years together. I smirked. Then it'll be my turn. I'll start with gratitude. The guests will relax. And then you'll tell the truth, Sophia finished. Yes, I'll introduce each of you in turn. I'll tell your stories. Elizabeth will stand last. The pregnant mistress he himself brought to the celebration. Elizabeth put her hand on her belly. She was already 14 weeks along. The curve was noticeable. I have all the evidence, Victoria said, taking a folder out. Messages, bank transfers, everything. I have mine too, Sophia added. Letters where he asked for meetings with clients. It's all documented. Maria nodded at the laptop screen. I'll bring medical records, proof of the pregnancy, the miscarriage. The dates will line up with his disappearances. Excellent, I nodded. We're not just accusing. We're proving it. And what if he tries to run? Elizabeth asked. Where would he go? Sophia smirked. All his partners, clients, friends will be there. If he bolts, it will only confirm his guilt. He's trapped the moment he walks into the hall. We spent another hour discussing details. Who would say what? How to react to any of his attempts at explanation. Every word was planned. 3 days before the anniversary, Robert grew unusually attentive. He gave flowers, cooked dinner, hugged me in the evenings. 27 years, Jess, he said, kissing the crown of my head. Can you imagine? More than half our lives together. I can, I answered, feeling my stomach tighten. I know I haven't always been the perfect husband. Worked a lot, didn't give enough time, but I love you. I always have. The lie poured out so naturally, he believed his own performance. I do too, I lied back. He smiled and went out onto the balcony with his phone. A minute later, I heard his voice. Soft, tender. No, I can't now. The day after tomorrow will be different, I promise. I love you too. Elizabeth. He was talking to Elizabeth, promising her something. A minute later, he returned to me, hugged me, told me I was the most important thing in his life. An acting job worthy of an Oscar. The night before the anniversary, I didn't sleep. I lay in the dark, listening to Robert's breathing and thinking about everything. 27 years of marriage. How much of it had been truth and how much a lie. The women he'd used, the child Elizabeth carried. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, his perfect world would collapse. Robert shifted in his sleep and wrapped his arms around me. I love you, he mumbled in his sleep. The last lie before the storm. I love you too, I whispered into the dark. The last lie before the truth. In the morning, a new life would begin for all of us. The anniversary day dawned sunny and unreal. I woke early. Robert still slept. I watched his face, relaxed, peaceful, and thought that in a few hours that peace would be shattered. Good morning, my love. He opened his eyes and smiled. Our big day. Our big day, I repeated. He stretched and kissed my cheek. I ordered you a surprise. They'll deliver a dress by 2. I want you to be the most beautiful. A dress. He'd ordered a dress for the celebration at which I would destroy him. Thank you, I smiled. You thought of everything. I always think of you, he said, getting up to dress. I need to be at the office for a couple of hours to check final details with the restaurant. See you at 3? Of course. When he left, I called Maria. I'm at the hotel, she said. I'm so nervous. It'll be fine. Come to the restaurant at 7. When everyone's gathered, you'll enter with the others. A surprise. He'll recognize me. Exactly. Let him recognize you. Let him panic. By then it will be too late. Next, I called Victoria. Sophia and I will be there by 7. Her voice was steady. We'll storm in when the toasts begin. Robert will try to stop us, but with all the guests there, he won't be able to do anything. Right. The last call was to Elizabeth. Jessica, I don't know if I can, she sobbed. Seeing him there, pretending. You'll come as his guest, as he invited. Sit among the others, and when I start the toast, you'll stand. He won't be able to stop you in front of everyone. She sniffled. All right, I'll be there. The dress arrived at exactly 2 o'clock. Emerald green, elegant, expensive. Robert had chosen perfectly. It fit like a glove, highlighting the figure I had maintained for years. I looked at my reflection, a 50-year-old woman in a beautiful dress, flawless makeup, styled hair, the perfect wife for the perfect anniversary. For the last time. Robert returned at 3, just as promised. He changed into his suit, adjusted his tie. God, Jess, you look stunning, he said, wrapping his arms around me. I'm the happiest man in the world. Really? I looked him in the eyes. Really? 27 years with you. The best thing that ever happened to me. He believed his own words. That was the most frightening part. The restaurant welcomed us with the soft glow of chandeliers and the fragrance of flowers. The grand hall was immaculate. White roses, candles, tables with crystal glasses. At the center, our wedding photograph enlarged. Young, happy, in love. Perfect, Robert said, looking around. Simply perfect. Guests began arriving at 6. Robert's partners with their wives, neighbors, old friends. All smiles, congratulations, admiration for the decor. I greeted each one with a smile. The perfect hostess. At 6:45, Elizabeth appeared. She entered the hall, beautiful, in a pale blue dress that softly outlined her rounded belly. Robert immediately moved toward her. I saw the mix of joy and faint panic in his eyes. Elizabeth, so glad you could come. He kissed her on the cheek, quickly, carefully. Thank you for the invitation, she smiled tightly. Robert led her over to me. Jessica, this is Elizabeth Clark, the colleague I told you about. Elizabeth, my wife. We looked at each other, 2 women bound by one man. I extended my hand. Very pleased to meet you. Robert has told me a lot about you. Likewise, she said, shaking my hand. Her fingers trembled. Please, make yourself comfortable, I gestured to the tables. Robert seated Elizabeth among his business partners. She sat there, alone among strangers, her hands resting on her belly. At 7 o'clock, everyone had gathered. 60 people, friends, family, colleagues. Waiters poured champagne. Robert stood and tapped his glass with a spoon. Dear friends, his voice filled the hall. Thank you for coming to share this special day with us. 27 years ago, I married the most wonderful woman in the world, and every day since, I've thanked fate for that choice. The guests murmured approvingly. Jessica, he turned to me, you are my rock, my love, my everything. You made me a better man. You raised our son, built our home. I can't imagine life without you. Applause, smiles. Someone dabbed at a tear. To us, he raised his glass. to a love that lasts a lifetime. To you, the guests responded in chorus. Everyone drank. Robert kissed me in front of them all, long, demonstrative. I let him. The last kiss of lies. He sat down, satisfied, waiting for my reply. I stood, took my glass. The hall went silent. Thank you, Robert, for your beautiful words, I began, my voice soft and warm. 27 years is indeed a long time, a lifetime. In those years, I've learned much about love, about loyalty, about trust. Guests nodded, smiling. I've learned what true partnership means, I went on, when two people walk through life together. In joy and in sorrow, in truth and... I paused. In lies. Several people exchanged glances. Robert frowned. Jess, but tonight I want to be honest with all of you, I said louder. I want you to know the truth about the man you're here to celebrate. At that moment, the doors of the hall swung open. Victoria, Sophia, and Maria walked in, one after another. Robert turned and froze. His face went pale, his eyes widened. He recognized them, all three. What are you? He began to rise. Victoria Chung, I pointed to her. Sophia Larson, Maria Rodriguez. I think you remember them, Robert. He stood there, mouth open, unable to speak. These women aren't here by chance, I continued, nor is Elizabeth Clark, your so-called colleague. Elizabeth slowly stood, hands on her belly. The guests began to look around, whispering. Confusion shifted into shock. Victoria? I nodded to her. Please, go ahead. Victoria stepped forward, her voice clear. 2 years ago, Robert and I were seeing each other for 8 months. He promised he would divorce. I lent him $20,000. He disappeared without paying back a cent. The hall gasped. That's a lie, Robert found his voice. She's crazy. Sophia? I looked to the next woman. Sophia spoke coldly, like at a courtroom. 4 years ago, we were together for 6 months. Robert used my professional contacts. I helped him land 3 major contracts. When there was nothing left to take, he vanished. No! You've conspired against me. Robert's eyes darted between the women. Maria? I nodded to the last woman. Maria spoke through tears. 3 years ago, I got pregnant by Robert. He promised to marry me. I lost the baby at 4 months. He said it was for the best. And then he left me. Guests began to stand. Some in shock, some in outrage. And Elizabeth. I turned to her. Tell them. Elizabeth trembled but spoke. We've been seeing each other for a year. I'm pregnant. Robert demanded I have an abortion, so I wouldn't interfere with his perfect family life. That's all lies, Robert shouted. Jessica, you bribed them all. This is a setup. We have evidence, I said calmly. Messages, bank transfers, medical records, everything. Victoria pulled out a folder and started handing copies to the guests. Robert tried to snatch the papers, but his partner shoved him away. Don't touch me, Harrison. The hall turned chaotic. Some guests walked out in disgust. Others crowded around the women, examining the evidence. Robert stood in the middle, ruined, exposed. I raised my glass one last time. To the truth, however bitter it may be. Robert stood at the center of the room, and for the first time in 27 years, I saw him truly helpless. Not an actor, not a manipulator, just a man whose world was collapsing before his eyes. Jessica, please. He stepped toward me, reaching out his hand. We can discuss this. At home, privately. Don't? I stepped back. Don't tell the truth? Don't let everyone know who you really are? His business partner, Thomas Miller, was flipping through the documents Victoria had distributed. His face hardened with each page. Harrison, he said coldly, here's correspondence in which you ask Ms. Cheng to lend you money supposedly for our joint project. There was no such project. You used the company's name for personal fraud. Thomas, it's a misunderstanding, I can explain. $20,000 is not a misunderstanding. Miller threw the papers on the table. It's a crime. And a reputational disaster for the whole firm. Miller's wife took his arm. We're leaving. Now. They headed to the exit, and other business partners followed. One by one. Silent. Contemptuous. Wait! Robert ran after them. We can sort this out. It's personal. It doesn't concern the business. Everything you do touches the business when you use our name. Another partner called over his shoulder. Robert froze at the door, watching his career walk away. Then he turned slowly and looked at Elizabeth. You... His voice shook with fury. You told her everything? You betrayed me? Elizabeth flinched but answered firmly. I didn't betray. You betrayed us. I loved you. I cared for you. You demanded I kill our child, she screamed, tears streaming down her face. You call that love? A few guests who remained, mostly my friends, formed a protective circle around Elizabeth. My colleague Sarah put an arm around her shoulders. Shh, sweetheart. It's okay. You're safe. Robert turned his gaze on me. You set this up on purpose. You planned it. You befriended them, conspired. Yes, I answered simply. I planned it. Because you deserved it every second of this nightmare. 27 years! He slammed his fist on the table. For 27 years, I was your husband, the father of our son. I built this house, this life. You built a lie, I said quietly, layer upon layer. I only peeled back all the layers, showed what was underneath. His face distorted. You destroyed my life. No, Robert. You destroyed it yourself. I only made sure everyone knew. Maria stepped forward. Her voice trembled, but her words were clear. You know what I remember most? When I was lying in the hospital after the miscarriage, bleeding, I called you. Again and again, you never answered once. And a week later, I found out you were married, that you had a wife, a son, a home, that to you I was nothing. Maria, I'm sorry. You're not sorry, she cut him off. You're only sorry because you got caught. If it weren't for Jessica, you'd still be going on, finding new women, lying, using them, throwing them away. Sophia added coldly, 3 contracts. Thanks to me, you made nearly $1 million. I introduced you to people who trusted me. You used my name, my reputation, and then you disappeared without even a thank you. Victoria pulled out her phone, opening her banking app. $20,000. I'm still paying off the loan I took for you. Every month, 3 years. A reminder of how much of a fool I was. Robert slowly sank into a chair. He stared at the floor. 4 women stood before him, living proof of his betrayals. That was never love, Elizabeth said quietly. Not once. You're just a good actor. You say what people want to hear. You promise what they want to believe. And then, when you get bored or things get complicated, you just leave. Robert lifted his eyes, looked at me. And you, Jessica? All these years, did you love me? I thought about it. An honest question deserved an honest answer. Yes, I loved you. The real you, or the man you pretended to be. I don't even know anymore if there ever was a real Robert, or if it was always just an act. I loved you, he whispered. I swear I did. Maybe, I nodded, but love isn't enough without respect, without loyalty, without honesty. You betrayed me over and over, and even now you're not truly apologizing. You only regret getting caught. About 15 people remained in the hall. My closest friends, a few distant relatives. They watched the ending in silence. My friend Linda came up to me, hugged me. You're incredibly strong, she whispered. Or incredibly crazy, I tried to smile. No, strong. You gave him exactly what he deserved. Robert was still sitting, broken. Then he slowly stood. What now? He asked hoarsely. Now I file for divorce, I answered. I have a lawyer. Evidence of infidelity. Witnesses. You'll get the papers within a week. And the house? The money? I have a good lawyer, I repeated. A very good one. Sophia smirked. I can recommend mine. He specializes in divorces with cheating spouses. Absolutely ruthless. Thank you, I nodded to her. I'll be in touch. Robert looked at all of us, at 5 women united against him, at the guests who remained, staring with either contempt or pity. I'll leave, he said quietly, right now. I'll pack my things and go. Smart choice, I replied. He walked past me toward the exit, stopped for a moment. Jessica, I really am sorry. I know, I met his eyes. You're sorry you were caught, but not sorry for what you did. He opened his mouth as if to say something, but thought better of it. He turned and left. The doors closed behind him, and for the first time in months, I felt the weight lift from my shoulders. Elizabeth came up to me. Jessica, I don't know what to say. Thank you for helping me see the truth, for standing by me with the baby. I looked at her stomach. This is your child. He isn't guilty of his father's sins. You'll manage. We'll all help. Victoria, Sophia, and Maria gathered around us. 5 women, 5 victims of one man. Now, 5 allies. What about us now? Maria asked. Now we live, I answered. Without lies. Without him. Just live. Sophia raised her glass. To us. To women who refused to stay silent. We clinked glasses, drank, and the celebration that was meant to be the anniversary of lies became the beginning of truth, however bitter it was. 6 months later, I sat in the cafe, the very one where I had first met Elizabeth. Only now we were there together, with no secrets, no lies. How are you? I asked, glancing at her rounded belly. Just 1 month until the birth. Scared, she admitted. But good. My mom's coming to help. And you promised to visit. I promised, I smiled. The divorce went quickly. Robert didn't fight. Too much evidence. Too many witnesses. The house stayed with me, along with half his savings. He lost his job a week after the anniversary. His partners severed all contracts with him. The last I heard, he'd moved to another state, trying to start over. Victoria got her $20,000 back. My lawyer insisted on compensation as part of the divorce. Sophia received a public apology that helped restore her reputation. Maria found a therapist and began to heal. And I, for the first time in years, I felt free. Do you regret it? Elizabeth asked. That evening? I thought for a moment. No. I only regret not finding out the truth sooner. That I spent so many years on lies. But now everything's different. Yes, I took her hand. Now everything's different. We finished our coffee and I walked Elizabeth to her car. She hugged me goodbye. A strange but warm embrace between women who had once been rivals. Will you be at the birth? She asked. I know it's crazy, but you're the only one who knows the whole story, who helped me. I looked at her stomach. My ex-husband's child, my son's half-brother or sister, a life born of betrayal. But an innocent life nonetheless. I'll be there, I said. Of course I will. She drove away and I stayed standing on the street in the warm sun. 50 years old, divorced, at the beginning of a new life. My phone buzzed. A message from Sophia in our group chat. Ladies, dinner Friday? Found a great place. Victoria replied, Count me in. Maria, me too. Missed you all. Elizabeth, if the baby doesn't decide to come early, I'll be there. I typed, I'll be there. Can't wait.